pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. I know there's probably several folks watching virtually, and I'd like to welcome you to our meeting tonight. We'll move along and try to be as efficient as possible. Item 1.04 is approval of the meeting agenda. Dr. Rapp.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we have your yellow sheet we refer to with the very few amended agenda items.
Chair, I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Lowe and a second by Mr. Henderson that we approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.01 is public comment. Anyone sign in to speak? Anyone to sign in to speak? Is there anyone that would like to speak? Thank you for being here tonight. Item 3 is consent agenda. There are only 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there either one of those 2 items that any board member wants to discuss specifically? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 301 and 302. Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Brooks and a second by Mr. Henderson that we approve the consent agenda, including items 3.01 and 3.02. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 4.01, supplemental appropriation request. Dr. Rapp.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and board leaders. Annually, we submit an appropriation request. Part of this won't be a surprise to you at all in terms of the amount that we're asking for supplemental lottery for pupil funding of the $292,919. You'll see that the total includes those obligated and encumbered funds. We've already communicated that with the county. Also, we've included that, again, that $292,919, for which, when Mr. Berry and I talked to Mrs. Copenhaver, now Ms. Sturgill, at the county office, they were aware that that amount was going to be roughly in that figure. If you'll remember, in case you don't, and please forgive me for repeating myself, but just a lot's gone on in between our first conversations about this. But if you'll remember, at one time it looked as if we were not going to receive those supplemental lottery funds, at least the last payment. But we were told later in the spring that we would actually receive them, and that is the case. So this is the last payment of those supplemental lottery funds that were submitted on June 30. And so the board, the county administration is aware that this came in at the 11th hour. So that money is unobligated, and Mr. Berry just requested when I do send this letter to him, after the board's reviewed it and approved it, that to just make sure that that notation is there for consideration. And then the remaining local unobligated remaining local appropriations, I'll get it right in a minute, is $244,050. So if you were to, that shows you what the unobligated balance of $536,969. And just as another reminder to you, during this process, we were the school year, remember that there was $550,000 held back during the as far as local appropriation money. So you could include that as well in terms of not into carryover, but understanding the local contribution was, for lack of a better word, reduced during that time because that payment was not made. And they are expecting this information with all the encumbrances tomorrow morning, should the board consider approval of this.
Any discussion, question, comments? Do I have a motion to approve supplemental appropriation?
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lowe, second by Mr. Henderson. We approve the request for supplemental appropriation. Any discussion? Dr. Bailey.
So the unobligated remaining local appropriation that you're asking for would go in the general fund? Have you put it in any specific categories, or it just comes back to the general fund? In addition?
To the general fund, yes.
Okay.
And certainly the board can make a decision. They have done that on one occasion where we asked for that request. I don't know if you all remember that one, that Mr. Pennington really helped us in navigate, working our way through that one. But there's certainly, could be used in other categories, but we felt like under these circumstances, it'd be better to have it in the general fund.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Have a motion by Ms. Lowe, and second by Mr. Henderson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Item 5.01, school reopening update, Dr. Rapp.
Just a couple quick items, and certainly if others in the room have, additional items they'd like to discuss staff-wise, please join me in doing that. Today was the full day of having all staff on board with us. Everything that we could see and understand was a very productive day. A lot of collaboration, a lot of work. Obviously, apprehension and a lot of things that are different. So certainly not saying it's without its peculiarities because it certainly has those. But we were real pleased with the productivity today, and some of the conversations that I've had with other people would suggest that we are obviously have some, I wouldn't call it momentum yet, but there is some focus in terms of what we need to do at least over the next 6 weeks. And with the expectation to try to provide the highest quality of education that we can. We know it is not the same as in-person instruction, and our folks are really working hard in that regard. There are a couple of things that are taking place this week to include new teacher orientation that we've kept to a real limit, where you have a real safe distancing requirement anyway. Folks are asked to wear masks at all times, unless they're in a place where they're by themselves or in a protected area. There's also some other things that we're going to be doing, implementing in terms of health checks, temperature checks, and those kind of things in our buildings during this time, during this high health metric window time, certainly, and going forward. But the new teacher orientation that I referenced is going to be very brief and to the point, and we appreciate everyone being open and understanding of the fact that we need to keep that real simple and in-house. As we move along, certainly everyone's going to be looking forward to that opportunity for not just our board to talk and interact with our staff, but also we look forward to that opportunity that you'll be able to make visits into their classroom, and it's all what we all want to have happen at some point. Is there any additional things, Dr. Noe, from today or this week, Dr. Wallace? Just so you'll know that, I mean, there's a lot going on, but I don't know that any of that is really changed. Information-wise, I will give you just a quick update on the health metrics, just so you're aware that we remain in a place where we continue to increase. We're in all those categories I suggested before. Our positivity rate has gone down a little bit in the cases, just over a 2 or 3 day period. However, there were 22 new cases on this weekend, or on Saturday, I think, alone in Washington County. We're up to right at 290 cases in Washington County, so that continues to be of concern as far as the cases. And I think that's it on that for reopening. Calendar-wise, you know, we're having work days all through this week, as you're aware, and we'll get going construction on August 24th planned. Sir. And then one item, if you don't mind, that I don't have on the agenda. I did have a conversation with Senator Pillion's aide today, and I had 2 conversations with Sheriff Andis about some questions about the SRO program and all of that. What Sheriff Andis and I talked about on 2 occasions today is that because he was not a part of finalizing the last MOU, and then the spring disrupted some of those conversations in MOU planning. He and I thought it would be best that I offered the MOU that we have in place, and I told him it may be that it doesn't need to be edited. There may be additional training. He had shared some training that had taken place, so there may be some additional training. There may be other things that either they participated in or that we would like to look at with them. So we thought it best to go over that MOU together.
Will you talk about MOU a minute, because I'm not, for the benefit that may not know, because I'm not sure I know exactly.
I'm sorry?
MOU.
I'm sorry, it's our memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement that we have. I apologize, thank you.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. Should never do that, I apologize. That memorandum of understanding or agreement that we have with the local law enforcement and what they're doing in their presence in schools, I will let you know that. And so anyway, we'll pass that along, work on that together. Dr. Noe and Dr. Wallace, I met with them briefly after a meeting. They both have met with the sheriff's office. They've been very generous in their offerings about not only how they might support us from an SRO perspective, but just from a community perspective. And they make a lot of offerings in terms of transportation, delivery, whatever else, presence, supervision. I mean, the list kind of goes on. Would you agree? The offering is just very generous and just coming alongside us and supporting us. So those conversations have already taken place during this health crisis, but they also wish to talk about the memorandum of understanding. And we shared today, and I shared with Senator Pillion's aide, as they go to General Assembly, there's been some conversations about resolution and support, and certainly we offer our support for it, and we're very pleased with all of our officers, not just because one of them's here, but they're truly friends and colleagues to us, and we're going to learn together. So we're going to work on that MOU and bring it back to the board so that everybody's fully aware of what that's going to include. In addition to this, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of this, that our school resource officer program is totally locally funded. I mean, there's a portion of that we've all, our finance committee, in conversations with the board, that we've agreed to pay as well, but that's still considered local money, and that's all locally funded. We have only Washington County and maybe two, but I think it's just one other school division in Southwest Virginia is already out of that cycle of grants that are given from the state. You know, that program was established in 1999 post-Columbine, and so those monies we are no longer tapping into from a grant perspective. So everything is locally funded. I've heard zero discussions. That's not saying that we won't broach those topics at some point, but there have been zero conversations from the locality as to not having that funding available for SROs for the coming school year. Would not speak past that, but for this school year that we're currently in, that remains in place with our portion that we would pay for the SRO. I think that's $60,000, so pretty sure. Well, I guess that's it, because the grant funding is no longer a part of what is transpired, and there's nothing been filed at the General Assembly at this point. I think there was just some anticipation and concern that there would not be funding available in the future, or the current grants would be taken away from those who are receiving those grants, or what might be available for funding for that and other things like mental health and substance abuse and things like that. So there's conversation about that budgetarily, but we have seen nothing on file. If that were to be the case, I've been asked that we be contacted to let us know if there should be a need to have conversations with our local legislators or the governor's office about that. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on the MOU, and I'll be bringing it back to you after Sheriff Anderson's staff and everybody had a chance to review it, and then come back to us and review it as well.
Any
That's it.
So, Dr. Ratliff, if you can tell us that today, in far southwest health region, we are still high burden. The trend is still upward, and we are still at substantial community increase.
Yes, that's what we did not get the real specifics county by county today. She explained that to us from the health department that for some reason, but yeah, there's a pandemic profile. I think it may have been one that I showed on the screen on Thursday. And yes, sir, we are still in the high transmission areas. And in Washington County, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If
We
we
were-
get those, can you share those with the board?
I think I'm allowed to share those with the board now.
Okay,
so.
if you can.
But there's, but those are, yes, sir, we're still on that. And I thought we had a break in consecutive days for the increasing trend of when it hit 54 or 55. But I noticed over the weekend, when we did get that information, we were at day 59. We have been consecutive 59 days of increase in the cases. So I don't know if there was a mistake. They said that sometimes, I think I may have explained this Thursday, that sometimes someone may move from an area, so that was the case was, you know, it happened in Washington County and then somebody moves to another jurisdiction. Sometimes that might disrupt the number of cases. But we've had an increase, the last I saw for 59 consecutive days, we've had an increase in cases in Washington County.
And that was if the board wants to receive those. You know, I think it'd be good for us just to be
Yeah, I
on
agree.
the know, on the fly.
I mean, because we're, 4 weeks from now, we've got to make another board decision.
The key real quick, if you don't mind, just to help with that dissemination that Dr. Brandon's asking for, dissemination of information is, keep in mind that the 7-day averages are really probably the most robust data that you're gonna get because it'll vary from day to day. But we do keep track of the daily metrics, but those 7-day averages that you may see are the ones that are really important to watch. And we're, by the way, I'd mentioned on Thursday that we were at around 69 in August, already at that point, August 13, but now it's right at 90. So we're at August 17 with 90 cases. So where I mentioned that we're projected, if you were going to do a projection, I'm not offering to make those kind of projections, but if you were to do one based on what we know today, then that changes from 135 to 150 cases to potentially 180 cases just in the month of August. So, and things in some neighboring counties have leveled off a little bit, not much. Some others, there's no rhyme or reason to it most of the time. As of today, I'm not aware of any outbreaks, a particular intense outbreak in a particular community or a facility setting. There may be, but I'm not aware of one. That's all.
Mr. Chair, one comment about the school resource officer's memorandum of understanding. Ms. Willis sent out to her building today, on that list, a document from Lieutenant Wilson that talked about the duties of the SROs during this unprecedented time. And it included things like doing home visits with faculty and checking on students, and it was a really long list of many of their duties that I'm sure that all of you all will see at some point, or I'll be happy to share it with you. But it was interesting to me, as you know, people have asked me, what are they going to be doing without students in the building? So,
Thank you. Yeah, that was part of the home visits and some of the other things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. They're again, they stand ready and willing, and we'll, if we have that list generated, we can just share that with everyone. That'll be good for all the board to have.
Item 6.01 is approval of the meeting agenda for September 21st, 2020. I know last meeting, a special call meeting, we moved the meeting from the 14th to the 21st. Is there a need to have a meeting early in September? You got Dr. Noe, Dr. Rapp, and Dr. Wallace, you can tell us more, give us more direction than what we know, because
I mean, I think it would be an updated meeting on what's going on in the schools would be the only thing. I don't know, from a personnel standpoint, you know, as long as the board is good with the fact that we may be filling some of these positions, particularly the most recent positions that you approved in terms of substitutes and things like that, as long as the board is okay with superintendent having the authority to make those assignments, and I would think from a personnel perspective, that there wouldn't be anything else to bring to your attention. I will say, like I've said every time, I do appreciate the board being patient about this, that I'm certainly on any given day, and certainly every week, there may be a new challenge and a new responsibility to share additional information. So if the board, it's the pleasure of the board to be open to the fact that we may have to have a call meeting in that regard, then I think we're okay to keep it as scheduled. Gentlemen, ladies, Ms. Caldwell, anything?
I have a motion to approve the agenda for September 21st, 2020. I have a motion by Mr. Henderson and a second by Ms. Hamilton to approve the agenda for the September 21st, 2020 school board meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 7.01, update with the board. Mr. Henderson, I'll start with you.
Well, I just want to thank all my board members. What we did the other day, we were in a real tough spot. But when we saw all the information that was put before us, we stepped up to the plate, did what we should have done for our students, our employees, and our school system. And I really appreciate everybody, all of us being on board. Like I said, if we would have known, from the get-go, we wouldn't have gone through all this. So, but I really appreciate everyone on our board and everyone in the central office and all the administrators, all the hard work they've done to prepare for school. If we can do anything for them, they know we're there for them. So that's about it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt, I had a name down here, and when you asked Mr. Henderson to speak first, I did get a letter of appointment today, and I meant to mention that during my superintendent's matter, that we have learned that Mr. Henderson has been appointed to the VSBA Legislative Positions Committee, and that was just given to us today, and I apologize for missing that, Mr. Music, before, so I know that you'll join me in congratulating or giving condolences to Mr. Henderson in this regard, and we're obviously speaking on behalf of administratively from a staff perspective, or obviously, as I know that you are, very appreciative of him filling that role, and it's nice to have that representation at the state level.
Are y'all gonna allow vote by mail?
No, I'm gonna go up there.
Yeah, I really don't have anything other than, I think the constant talk about mitigation and efforts at the building level, at the, central office, I think it's gathering speed.
Yes, sir.
Just from what I've witnessed briefly, I don't go in and bother people, but I see people and understand what they're saying, and, hand washing, sanitizing stuff, as soon as you walk in the door, temperature checks, health screenings. I mean, I think it's, whatever it took to get the point across, I think you all got the point across. So, thank you.
Mr. Plummer.
Thank you.
Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, just happy to be here. Also, I've been sharing some duties the last couple of weeks. Didn't have a lot of people to run. So I've been picking up mail when I was up here and delivering mail. So I've been able to just to visit in all the schools, and I can tell you, all the schools that down on my end of the county, they are looking the best that they've looked in years and years. The custodian staff is doing a great job, and they look really, really good. And so I'm just glad to be there. And it seemed like everybody is excited and working hard to get the new year started. Yeah, I think they're ready. So But, just glad to be here. Thank you.
Ms. Hammond?
I don't have much. Just one piece of feedback that I got coming in before the meeting, and I know Dr. Ratliff said now the staff's able to really focus more on one platform going virtual. They were unclear of what screen time actually means, if it's 90 minutes of live instruction or that just means they're on the computer. So I said I would throw that out there. And that might look different for every teacher. I'm not sure. Do you have any insight into that particular piece?
That'd be primarily live instruction. There may be some activities that they would do that would not be counted as screen time. The things like IXL time is screen time, programs along that line, that's all screen time, whether it be live, video, or active engagement in a program that's utilized. Something such as writing a paper or an essay would not be considered screen time.
Okay.
Completing math problems on a sheet, that's not screen time.
That's it. Thank you.
Looking forward to next week and people's efforts, and certainly thinking about all in our community, whether it's parents or families or grandparents or students or employees and all the other folks as we go where we've not gone before. And I think we're all, supportive, and we know there'll be some hiccups, and I know that we'll pivot and we'll deal with it as we need to. And so we're here to support, and we'll keep doing that. Thank you.
I've been out a little bit and got the opportunity to talk to some parents and educators, and everyone seems to be very understanding of what we've done in our meeting. Had several comments on our meeting and what we've done, and that we were unified in what we've done. And I think when we come together and take the information that we have and make informed decisions based on data, and try to take care of our community and take care of our students and take care of our staff, I think it's not perfect, but as a majority of the folks I've talked to, it's been received well, and with the understanding that the ultimate goal is for all of us, as we all said, to get students back in school as soon as possible. So I think, as we said Thursday, that's the goal for all of us. But it's going to be certainly going to be a challenging time, but it is Washington County, and as I've said before, when there's a challenge out there, our folks step up to the challenge and they meet the challenge. And we've been in buildings today, and I've heard a little bit of talk, but folks know what they need to do, and they're working, and they're going to make it happen to the best of their ability. There's going to be bumps in the road along the way, but we're going to have to learn as we go. There's no blueprint out there. It's not like it's ever been done before, so there's no map, there's no blueprint for us to follow. So we're just going to have to work through it and do the best we can. And I'm sure that's what our folks are going to do, and really, really appreciate our staff out there at the building on the front lines. It's really the ones that's going to make. We're going to support. We're going to do everything we can, but they're the ones that's really going to make this thing happen. And so, as I said, they step up to the challenge, and they're going to do what they need to do, and we just need to walk along beside them and support them and do what we can for them. So we just want to thank them and for what they're doing. And at this time, I'll ask for a motion to go into closed session after a 5-minute break.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion on the board convenes in closed session after a 5-minute break for the purpose of discussing the following matters as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia. Under Section 2.2-3711A2, request for release of compulsory school attendance due to religious exemptions in cases 21 and 22 for the 2020 and 2021 year. Under section 2.2-3711A, consider employment of specific individuals. Superintendent's document A for the teaching and academic department heads, team leaders, coordinators, and other positions and supplements. Consider employment of specific individuals contingent upon successful completion of background check. And consider resignation of specific individuals. And consider retirement of specific individuals. Consider specific individuals with non-teaching assignments to receive coaching supplement only, and subject to the number one, the VHSL approval, and with number two, within the number of positions approved for coaching under section 2.2-3711A1.
I have a motion by Mr. Brooks and a second by Mr. Henderson that we convene in closed session after a 5-minute break. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
I